Is this localized to one province, or like have you
No.
spoken to people in the US? Like is everywhere the same where they aren't going to prosecute a woman for physical abuse just because we don't want to understand that can happen both ways?
It varies in the U.S. I do a lot of work in U.S. courts, and I would say in the U.S. it varies more state by state. In
Hmm.
Washington State, if police get a domestic violence call and they come to your house, and the woman says he assaulted me and I'm afraid of him, the man has to leave the house at that point. They take him out. They escort him out of the house, even though he's had no due process. And if he says,
Right.
like, that's not true, I never did it, doesn't matter. He's out of the house. So forget about due process. I did one case where the guy had been doing extensive renovations on his house, and the contractor was living on the property, and he suspected his wife was probably having an affair with the contractor, and they get into an argument over it, and she calls the cops, has him evicted. So now he's in a hotel with no due process. She's back at the property with the guy he suspects she's having an affair with and his kids. uh, now it's
That's
very
crazy. Well, I can imagine it gets complicated that due process is one thing, but I imagine it's a delicate issue for police if a woman says I'm scared, I feel unsafe, and then they go ahead and say, well, we need to do due process, and then they leave and then leave the spouse in the house, and then there's a homicide. I can I at least that part I can understand why they ask someone to leave the house. There's a lot of precedent for men killing their wives in domestic
there.
violence situations.
Yeah, there is the option though. They have transition houses, safe houses for women all over the place. And here in Vancouver, they're building $3 million worth of safe houses for women, but nothing for men. There isn't one single shelter house for men anywhere in Canada. There's one
Right.
that a private group in Toronto built. The government has put zero into domestic violence for men because that's not their political mindset. Um, I mean, even in Washington State, they've got transition houses for women. So you could say, if you're feeling afraid, we have this place where you'll be safe. It doesn't have to necessarily be the man who's turfed out of the house.
Right. Yeah, that's really sad because I think, I don't think any reasonable person doesn't think that domestic violence, as far as men abusing women, isn't happening. It isn't very serious, and that it's something that should be taken serious. On the other end, it's sad and super troubling that no one's taking more of a point on what's happening to men. Even if the numbers aren't like, I don't know if it's 70-30, 60-40, 90-10, like it doesn't really matter. It would be, even if it's 90-10, it would be nice if there is a place for those men to call and for those men to go if they are experiencing, emotional or physical abuse.